Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Rouse, author of this little book right here. These other ones where you can get this, all of them down in that description. So go down, fiddle about, check it out, use your fingers, start the love. And speaking of starting love, I always start being so thankful of everybody here, of just the most amazing people, meeting new people. Excited to go on an interview with Mel soon. I'll tell you guys about it soon. She's pretty badass. Thank you to Sean for setting that up. I mean, just everybody, all my ladies, all the friendships, everything, the conversations we're having, the people I don't see. I'm just really, truly thankful that people even pay attention to me and how much we're growing. And I love it, you guys. Thank you so much for making this channel what it is, making the family what it is here. I'm really motherfucking lucky. Honestly. And speaking of lucky, some people, today's subject, some people think I was a very, very, very lucky girl for getting a certain rock singer, which... sometimes I beg to differ. So we're going to talk about that today. And today, you know what? I haven't had one of these in a long time. I got to shake it a little bit because, you know, your micheladas. And I was just craving, and since my locals, Shades, haven't made their Bloody Mary michelada for a while, hint, hint, make it again, I'm going to have one of these. Because that's all I can find. I'm in Utah. Life behind the Zion curtain, y'all about to find out. Fafo. All right, everybody kick up your feet. Grab your micheladas. And let's have a little... Ooh, gotta slow down. Too much at once. It's never... said no one ever. All right, you guys. Cheers, big ears. There's just something about the Clamato and the beer and the lime and everything about it that just... I love a good michelada. It's just so good. Even though it is my... not the biggest fan of, you know, basic beer, but I do actually really like their micheladas. So, and that's just my flavor. Like everybody knows here, I'm a brew head. If I'm going to have a good Pilsner, I'm going to have it from one of my locals. So, but yeah, this is really good. Definitely swallow this over Mick Jagger any day. And speaking of swallowing, did I that night? I don't think so. Despite someone wanted me to. So we are going to do a little reading from, let's see, what is this? This is 1986. 86, what a good year. I was just, how old? This is April-ish, about 1986. Let me double check. April or March. Sorry. What is the date on that pass? What is the date on this pass? This wasn't from this show, but this is a couple days later. Anyway, a couple weeks later. Okay. So, I'm going to read to you guys from the night I met James Hetfield. Yeah. You know, some people like to think because he's James Hetfield, I was just a hoe from the beginning. Fuck no. But yeah, so we're going to read 1986, Let the Games Begin, because that's kind of really when my groupie life started to really take off. You know, it was just, so much fun, so crazy. And boy, was I about to learn my lesson about fall in love, rock and roll. Whew, it's a tough one. Okay, so let's get started. It was the last great groupie scene in the history of rock and roll, and barely 15. I had just landed smack dab into the center of it all. That's when I moved to Salt Lake. I was 15 then. Danny, being a couple years older than me and a senior in high school, had gone back to Salem for the rest of the year to graduate among our friends. I didn't know when she would be back, if at all. I was left alone in a school that was bigger than a town I grew up in, but I had made some rocker girlfriends and been to a few of the top parties. I was making my way into a popular rocker crowd and getting some needed practice with one of the most desirable rocker boys from the good old Brighton High School. But still, it didn't do anything for me. I wanted the thrill of the musicians. The unpredictability of their roller coaster and the butterflies their sideways smiles gave me the second the desire came across their faces. I wanted to sit in the big iron-protected thingamajig in the middle of the crowd, FOH, and drink with the boys with the little plastic cards around their necks. Backstage passes. I didn't want to be in the suburbs at a Snob Hill High School, because that's what they called my high school, Snob Hill, because some of the kids drove better cars than the teachers. I wanted to be downtown waiting for band after band to come out to play. Fortunately, in May, after seemingly so far off, Ozzy Osbourne was coming to town with a new opening band out of San Francisco. The guy I was sleeping with from my high school had introduced me to their music. They were fucking brilliant for a thrash band. The band was called Metallica. Thrash was just being born out of the heavy groove of the 70s and the spite of punk. It was its own enigma, new and exciting. Yeah, it was. Not gonna lie, I was riding that man with Metallica over his... Yeah. Fantasy in my face. Alright. But the guys weren't the pretty boys of Motley Crue or Def Leppard. They were black t-shirt wearing tight ankle skinny jeans sporting men with hardcore attitudes. I kind of liked it. But was still under the pretty boy spell of Ozzy's guitarist Jake E. Lee. I hope you're feeling better, Jake. We all know he got hurt really, really bad with a really bad thingy. Because, well, he was walking his dog. So I hope Jake E. Lee's feeling better. Everybody send out the Latin love. Okay, but that's who I was after when this was happening. Okay, May of 86. Woo! I was going to go have him to make him my passage into the coveted SLC groupie scene. Because, Salt Lake City in the 80s, man. I went along with a friend from Brighton High School that was into Ozzy's latest album. That, and she had a car. I was not yet 16, and the bus system was still too confusing for a small-town girl like me. So having a groupie friend with a running vehicle of her own was just what my devious little plan needed. Plus, Jerry was a hottie with long dark hair and a flat ass. She did. We used to joke about it. She had a flat ass. I'll put a picture of her up here. She had a flat ass. All right. I knew she could drink and have a good time. But could she hang with the boys? Because not every girl was made to hang out with the band, and not every rocker girl was as badass as they made themselves out to be. They were posers, and me, well, I was more rock and roll than some of the boys. At least the ones at my high school, anyway. I followed the same routine as Foreigner, getting to the show too late for the back sidewalk ritual because Jay didn't see the reason to go early. Always go early, ladies. She didn't get the band game. She did not get the band game. Uh-oh. That was not a good sign. But I had seen in Metal Edge, the glam metal Bible of the 80s, that the tour schedule said Ozzy didn't have a show after Salt Lake City for 2 whole days. That had to mean something, right? It does. It means they're staying in town a couple extra days, so you get a little more action. I want some action. Give it to me. All right. I did. But anyway... Okay, what does that say? That had to mean something, right? It did. But anyway, I was finally equipped with the 80s rocker hair and the ultimate spandex wardrobe. Okay. I was finally equipped with 80s rocker hair and the ultimate spandex wardrobe necessity. A pair of zebra striped spandex and a black lace tank top with a red bra. I excitedly jumped into the car with Jerry so we could get closer to Jakey Lee. That was the plan anyway. A red bra. That was like such a rite of passage for me because red is always like a naughty color, little saucy, little she's a Jezebel. And, oh God, I wanted to be one so bad. So when I put on that red bra, I was just like, yeah, But, I was so young. A little more flat than I was now. Probably didn't need that bra. Jerry and I got into our general admission area by the backstage gates and just out to the side of the crowd, but in full view of the band members from the stage and roadies from the right. Metallica's small set was overcrowding the stage in front of Ozzy's stage bounty. They had their Master of Puppets background hanging behind the drum kit, and some guitars squeezed onto either side of the stage. The band hit the stage fast and furiously, banging their heads to the frenzy. They were not the pretty men of glam, that was for sure. But something about that lead singer caught my attention. I had seen him many times on the wall of my high school lover's bedroom. James, the lead singer, wasn't a bad-looking guy. But he still wasn't Nikki Sixx or David Lee Roth, I told myself. But he had a soft look to his hardcore blue eyes. Seeing James on stage now and hearing the energy live poured out through the fast strumming of guitars and speeding bash of the drums, something about the manliness of these guys' music and stage presence just turned me on. Yeah, it did. Ladies, if you know, you know. And we've all stood there in front of that band, and it's like I always say, you have no idea what it's like. You know, just that look when they look at you for that second from the stage. Oh, there's just nothing like it. Nothing. But then until you go backstage. Okay, seeing him on stage now and hearing the energy live poured out through the fast strumming of the guitars, speeding bash of the drums, something about the manly turned me on. Okay, but forget these guys. I was here for one man and one man alone in my mind, and that was Jake E. Lee. The universe, however, had a different idea altogether. After Metallica got off the stage and the arena lights came on, signaling a mass need for beer and toilets, Jerry and I stood our ground. We had a great spot to see the stage and also see the backstage area in all its glory. I pulled out my little makeup compact and touched up my Wet n Wild eyeliner. Wet n Wild, they still make that shit, don't they, I think? I don't know, do they? I looked behind me through the mirror and noticed the two roadies behind me checking out my plum in my zebra stripes. Instinctively, as if God urged me on, I turned my body around and looked them square and dead in the eye. I did that. If you like my ass, you should come over here and tell me, I dared them. I was no wallflower. If I wanted something, I was going to get it. And backstage, the roadies, they were there. They could take you there. They could open that gate and you were there. Jerry was mortified. She turned shy and smiled uncomfortably at my sexual boldness and muttered something under her breath. But then again, she didn't stay behind when the two roadies came over and told me just how much they liked my ass, and that it should be on the other side of those backstage gates. And just like that, the metal screeched against the concrete floor and a whole world opened itself to my eager little eyes. I walked through the barriers with all the confidence of a backstage pro, but in reality, had I just lost my real rock and roll virginity? Jerry slinked in behind me and stood smiling at the roadies. She was cool in a one of the guys kind of way. It could be lots of fun, but was not at all into these guys like I was. But for now, I could see she was mesmerized with everything and what was happening around us. And what was happening was rock and roll, baby. The real deal. Not some trumped-up album cover made to look like these musicians were demigods and cartoon characters. This was hard steel heavy equipment surrounded by concrete and bus exhaust that seeped in from the back doors. Everything that the music culminated in stood on the other side of the heavy yellow gates, and now I was in. And I was hoping so would Jakey Lee. So that was really my first time just really kind of backstage, like doors creeping open. I'd obviously met other rockers, had been hanging out with Def Leppard, but this is like those backstage doors just really fucking opened up, right? And when you hear those gates just screech open, you're like, fuck yeah. It's like the sound of the buses. It gets you so high. It's like you just took a hit and just went to that K-hole. I made small talk with one roadie while Jerry laughed at another. They sat us on these big black and silver boxes called road cases and brought us some beer. They said we could watch the show from there, so we didn't have to stand in front of the loudspeakers anymore. We lit a couple cigarettes and made ourselves at home. I told the roadie that I was talking to that I wanted to meet Jake. He reluctantly said he could make that happen at the meet and creep later on. I had no idea what this meet and creep was, but I did like the sound of it. I didn't like the detachment that seemed to go along with this opportunity. I wanted intimate time, alone, to be adored by the musicians and roadies for that matter. I mean, what girl doesn't want all the attention? But in the beginning, and since it was the 80s, the meet and creep room could sometimes be a great place to hook a rocker. Although it should only be used as a beginning tool and not as a permanent solution. Anyway, the roadies went to work after smoking a joint and loading us up with enough drinks to make it through Ozzy's set. I was looking around, taking in this whole backstage this world, because it was a different world. Even though it was under the same roof and completely visual to the front row Joes, it felt different. It felt privileged. And privileged is something I was used to, so this suited me just fine. Okay, that does come out kind of asinine, but that's not, oh God, that's not at all. Like privilege, that sounds so bad. No, it's like I felt very grown up, very attended to, very just kind of this, like the spotlight was on me in a good way for these guys, and I loved the attention, and it was just all soaking up, and it was just, yeah, that's kind of what I mean by that, so don't take it wrong. So not to mention the infamy that would come with it and the untouchable isolation. The whispers at school. Every eye in the crowd was on this backstage area and what was happening. Girls stood in herds trying in vain to hear the same screech in the middle that Jerry and I just did. For most, it would never happen. For others, there was just never a chance that it wouldn't. It was the path that my life was supposed to take, and in this moment, I knew it. It was all still so intoxicating, and still is. Oh, whoops. I'm getting ahead of myself. As if I wasn't high enough from the scene, the lights in the arena blackened, and the crowd turned its volume to 11. The rush of the music came towards the stage, and as I turned around to see a flashlight guiding the way for some sort of shadows. As my eyes adjusted, I saw it was Ozzy and the band coming out of those shadows. And there he was, Jake. His hair fully owning most of his height, his skinny legs nervously topped off with mismatched Converse tennis shoes. From what I could take in the dark, he was even more beautiful, and the guitar strapped around his neck hung like a sexy girl waiting to be touched. I knew if he moved well on stage with that guitar, bonded to it, and lost himself in it, he would be fun in bed. Because, ladies, you're watching that guy on stage with that, he's going to treat you like he treats his instrument. Not a good look for drummers, though. No, I'm kidding. I nudged Jerry as she stared with her mouth sort of dropped, and gave her the ever so intriguing raised eyebrow pirate smile that would become a signal for many other rock and roll conquests. This was it. This was the beginning of the roller coaster. The stage lights flickered alive. The crowd got even more agitated. The roadie I'd been talking to on the other side of the stage, making sure Jake was all strapped into his guitar as he pointed down in my direction. Jake smiled at me and waved. He made a motion to turn in a circle so he could check me out. 2 thumbs up and off to play some fucking rock and roll. I did a happy dance with Jerry and jumped back onto the road case. We danced and drank, got into our own little world with the music. I was completely ensconced in Jake on the stage and couldn't even begin to take my eyes off of him. I plotted our night in my head. The roadies brought us up some more joints and took us up the black little stairs to the side of the stage. Holy shit! Jerry and I giggled and huddled like the high school girls we were before resuming our dancing. We laughed as we picked out our fellow Brighton Heights classmates, seeing us in the ever so prestigious position. That was that. I could never stand in the crowd again. Nope, I was addicted and I wouldn't. The show ended and Jerry and I were brought back to a room A little room with beer, radio contest winners, back lounge Betties looking worse for the wear, and meat trays from some nameless supermarket deli. Okay, where was it? Oh, this is glamorous. Where was the caviar and the champagne? Where was the velvet and patchouli? Left in the damn 70s, because this was the 80s and we had balls as hard as only rock and rolls could be. The roadies had strategically placed Jerry and me by the door of this meet and creep room, so Jake could talk to me right away as he walked in. He would be quickly surrounded by the autograph hound lot, making his after-show sexcapade schedule was much more important in the big scheme of things. And then it happened, the inevitable. Jake entered the room, and we literally came face to face. He closed in for a kiss on my cheek and wrapped his arm around me. At that moment, oh ladies, you know what it feels like when that man you're interested in takes that waist, or whoever you're interested in, people, whoever, they take that hand around your waist and they just slide you in and pull it right. Oh, I love that. Oh, it turns me on. Okay. At that moment, I saw the rest of the room try to make a move. The guy that brought Jake in was moving his hands in an impatient kind of way, so Jake and I could really get to know each other for 5 minutes and decide if he wanted to fuck me that night. Geez, people, let the horny rocker make a groupie out of me already. Gall! I was 3/4 of the way there, and going back to the hotel with him would give me the final initiation I needed into this rock and roll geisha club. Jake and I were going along and totally engrossed into our 3 minutes of conversation when I heard the words that every groupie has heard 1,000,000 times, especially in the 80s. Allison, you're so sweet, Jake was signaling his interest, but he had one last thing. So how old are you? My heart sunk to chop suey china, but just for half a second before my natural instincts kicked in. 18. I totally lied for the first time. And I know there's a lot of victims that are coming, getting justice and being seen and heard these days, but I wasn't one of them, I was kind of the predator. I was lying about my age. I was having a fake ID. I was going for exactly what I wanted to, and I lied my way through it until 1988. Jake looked happy at what he thought was my final passing of the test and made plans for me to meet him back at the 1980s band haunt of Salt Lake City, the Marriott Hotel. It was Salt Lake City's version of the Riot House, minus the hangers-on in the lobby. He gave me his room number and told me to meet him there in about 30 minutes for a little after-show party of the private kind. While I was doing the biggest, dorkiest happy dance in my head, I calmly and coolly smiled and said, "Sure." We're so cute when we're, I look back at how calm, and I thought I was just so calm and sophisticated. Sir, but I was still really just, this high school girl, that was just in awe and fascinated and shy and didn't know what to do. Besides manners, I didn't know how this rock and roll world worked. And here I am, finding it out in real time. I grabbed Jerry's hand, and before she could protest her curfew in front of Jake, I pulled her out of the meet and creep. If she didn't want to go, that would be fine. I could always call my mom to come get me later. I said I was spending the night at Jerry's anyway. Reluctantly, Jerry said she would stay. She looked at me with a sort of wide-eyed surprise, but I think mainly because she knew that when I said I was 18, that I was planning on having sex with this musician until all kinds of hours into the morning. Hell yeah, I was. That was the plan anyway. At least I was hoping he could go till all hours in the morning. I'm kind of a thirsty girl sometimes. Still am. Yeah. All right. Where am I? I could tell from the look on her virginized face that she had been expecting me to get an autograph, maybe spend an hour on the bus after the show, and then make it back home by her curfew. Yeah, not the way it was going to happen. It wasn't even going to happen the way I thought it was, especially after Jake and I's witty, deep interlude an hour of eye-sex foreplay from the stage. Jerry and I walked with the roadies to the backstage doors and out to the bus parking lot. The lot where I had twice stood as a mortal on the verge. The lot where I now entered as the latest lady in the new court. I was too engrossed in talking with Jerry into staying at the hotel for a while to notice that the white Marriott van and opening band was creeping up behind us. But me being completely oblivious didn't mean the guys in that van didn't notice us. As the roadies and I finally talked Jay into staying and coming to the hotel with us, she and I headed down the pavement past the tour buses to her car, which was parked in the lot across the street. We never made it there. Before I knew what hit me, the white van came screeching up to the left of Jerry and I. A door slid open, and one Metallica drummer, Lars Ulrich, stuck his head out. "Hey, ladies, need a ride?" Yeah, he was coked up that night. "Why didn't you come with us?" he tried to entice. Jerry, being the efficient girl she was, saw it as an opportunity to not have to find parking and get our asses to the other side of the Salt Palace and across the street to our evening's new destination. She shrugged and got right in. That kind of surprised me. It's like, you're having such a hard time going to the hotel, but then you see these guys and you're in that van lickety-split, bitch. Kind of confusing. I hesitated and began to protest that we were supposed to be meeting a friend. Jerry sat her ground, right next to Lars. I was still lagging on getting in, so the band's ever so decisive lead singer stretched his long leg out of the van and into my body. Oof! I bent in half and had the wind knocked out of me a little as James Hetfield threw me over his shoulder and into the van filled with hardcore hairy men and Lars. "You're coming with me," he said enthusiastically with all the seriousness of J. Edgar Hoover. "And just exactly who the hell are you, and where are you taking me?" I demanded with my raised eyebrow attitude. "James," he said, I saw you back there," he said with a little boy point to the now disappearing parking lot. "What is your name?" I hesitated for a second as I looked at him. I saw something familiar. "Huh. Allison," I said quietly. And before we could even begin the conversation, the van pulled to a jerked stop in front of the hotel doors. Now this I knew. I had been to this hotel at the hotel with the band before, but as a guest. I strode confidently into the hotel over James's shoulder yet one more time. Well, I didn't stride. James strode confidently in the hotel with me over his shoulder one more time as they took Jerry and I to the elevator. She looked at me confused, but was riding it. She liked Metallica as much as I did, and we spent hours cruising aimlessly, listening to Master of Puppets. So to be hanging out with him now was cool to her, this once. We rode the elevator and got off into some random room where there was beer and booze chilling in a tub full of ice. That was their habit. Metallica always had a tub full of booze and ice. Always. The road manager and some girls were hanging in the room already. Lars went and got Jerry and I some beers, while James stood next to my side. All fucking night. He teased and played with me and made sure I had everything I needed. We talked a lot, and the more we talked, the more I liked him. So much I had totally forgotten about Jake until Jerry chimed in from across the room in a drunken giggle. "So much about Jakey Lee, huh, Allison?" She wasn't being mean at all, just finding it funny in the fact that I had not tried to escape and go be with the man who actually had first dibs on me. Meh, I had forgotten about him in the room number anyway. I waved her off and went back to James, who seemed pleased he had stolen away another rocker's prospect. Jerry soon announced she had to go. We protested, but she was hell-bent on sleeping in her own bed tonight, and of course secretly making her curfew. James didn't want me to leave after all the attention he had just given me. Because, we were just standing in the hotel hallway, or the hotel room when you walk in, there's that little hallway where there's the bathroom, the little closet, whatever. So we had just been standing there all night talking. And I believe Danny was also in the room this night. Because she was back for some reason visiting her mom. But anyway, so we were just in the hallway and no, Danny wasn't there that night. But anyway, so we were in the hallway and all night long we were just talking. We were totally in our own little world, just hanging out. He would, every time I would go to the bathroom, he would follow me in, lean up against the sink and keep talking. I'd be like, I never had a guy in the bathroom with me before. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going, you know? Like we were just, it was just that kind of chemistry that he was just very much, he followed me in the bathroom or wherever if I walked over to grab something out of my purse, you know? And it was just that, like, he was just grabbing my hand and had his arm around me. It was just like, we just had this crazy fucking chemistry. And it was, we were in our own little world all night long. I couldn't even tell you what was going on in the rest of the room until Jerry, like, was like, I gotta go. I'm like, bye, Felicia. So, okay. James didn't want me to leave after all the attention he had just given me, but I had no other ride home. Or did I? He would make sure. Oh, he was the band were hotel guests, and the Marriott van was at their disposal 24/7. James said he would make sure I made it home safe and sound. Okay, problem solved. I liked that. I about kicked Jerry into the elevator with the roadies that had joined up with us and one step closer to her car. James and I got into the next lift and made out all the way to his room. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was fun. Yeah, it was the first time I kissed him and I liked it. Holy shit, I thought. In the middle of the glamazon 80s, I was making out with this unpolished thrasher boy. Could I count this as my home run into the groupie club? According to the high school boy I was practicing with, Metallica were gods. Good enough, I thought to myself. But really, I had just spent the night talking, drinking, and laughing with this guy. He was just pretty cool on his own. I mean, like I said, we just had this chemistry. We're just in our own little world, like Vinnie Paul and I were, Steve Jones and I got to sometimes, you know. James and I went into his room and jumped into the bed and feverishly tore each other's clothes off. After some probably sloppy oral on both our behalves, I took a quick break to grab a condom out of my purse. Hey, I was hopeful and prepared. I turned back to James only to be confronted with this. My girlfriend only allows me to get blowjobs on the road, he said. Bleak, bleak. I didn't like the sound of that. So, did I just hear this? I know I was new to all this rock and roll brouhaha, but I didn't think that adhering to his girlfriend's wishes was a real priority. I froze, and it never was with James, was he? Because we all know, if you know, you know. I froze and cocked my head to the side, while he smiled and grabbed my hand in an effort to pull me back to him. I asked him what her stance on his face between my legs was. Ooh, Even at the age of what I was, and only 2 guys' worth of experience, I was just not okay with this little arrangement, no matter what his house row wanted. I wasn't about to be skull-fucked by this up-and-coming rock legend. That is not the groupie club I wanted to be in. I knew I could just waltz down to Jake's room if I could remember the number and probably wake him up. I thought I should have gone there in the first place now. I rolled over to the side of the bed and picked up my zebra spandex off the floor, threw on my shirt after pulling up my pants, and slipped my heels back onto my feet before turning around for what for. I don't know who you think I am, but if I'm going to do you, then you should be doing me too. If I'm going to crawl into that bed, you're going to fuck me, I said before turning towards the door. I did too. I fucking bitched him out. I'm like, no. If you're getting your ha-has, I'm getting my ha-has. No. I'm not just going to be your glory hole, dude. Nope, never was. Hey, Allison, James came after me. Come back, Allison. I kept going. I knew even then that if I didn't own my personal boundaries, that I would be treated as nothing more than what I now called a back lounge Betty. Fun girls, but only there for specific purposes, and companionship was not one of them. Because for me, it's like, it was everything about being a lover. Like, you have the goddess Pilates, who People are like, oh, she's the Venus de Milo. No, she's not. They're two different entities. Like, Venus de Milo was love, but Philotes was sex, connection, friendship. The beauty of all that rolled up into one. And that's what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a glory hole, and I wasn't going to put up with it. So, fun girls, but only there for specific purposes, and companionship was not one of them. But for me, that kind of jumping off made me feel disposable. I didn't want to be their jump off. I wanted to be the rocker's friend. I got into the elevator hoping by some chance that, and what I did, oh God. So how come I didn't write this? I forgot. Okay, so when I was going down the hallway, he was like, Allison, come back. I was like, no. I'm like, not until you break up with I said, call me when you break up with your girlfriend. Walked down the hallway. I said, left my number on the nightstand. Because that was true. I was just like pissed. I'm like, no, not coming back. When you break up with your girlfriend, call me. My number's on the nightstand. See you later. At least I left it on the nightstand. Okay, I got into the elevator hoping by some chance that Jerry would still be by the Salt Palace. Fortunately, I ran into the roadies from that evening and they got me into the hotel van just as James had promised to do. That's the thing about rock and roll. They don't leave their own in parking lots in the middle of the night, especially us girls. I went home, forgetting about the little details of the night. I had drunkenly given James my phone number while he stood watch over me in the hotel bathroom. Oh, that's right. That's when I gave it to him. I also forgot to tell him that there would be a mother at home to answer it as well. I was still... What he didn't know couldn't get him in trouble, right? Sure. Anyway, as I came in the front door and into my mom's room to tell her half-asleep self that I was home, she told me in her best sleepy talk that some James guy had called. Aw, he called, but shit. My mom answered. Did he know? Was I busted? And was I banned from Backstage until I was over the Backstage hill of 18? Not on this tour. It would be later in the year my mom woke me up one Sunday morning with the news. Oh, God, I forgot about it. I wrote about this. This is after I'd come back from Vancouver or Montreal, wherever this was. She had been reading the morning paper and drinking her coffee. I was always open about where I was with my mom. Not that she approved, but she knew she couldn't stop me from stretching my rock and roll legs either. She knew that look of sheer determination on my face. She decided it would be best just to be there as I needed her, to make sure I was safe in all my endeavors. But she didn't know that guy that called that one night was in a band called Metallica. And on this day, Sunday, September 27th, 1986, they had been in a bus crash. A fatal one. When she finally woke me up and handed the paper to me, I had instantly thought about Lars. My first instinct was that he was the one person. No, that one person was Cliff Burton. The band's core sound, an amazing head-banging bass player. It would fuck the guys up right and proper for years to come. And unbeknownst to me then, I would be there for part of it. So there you guys go. For the ladies, my lovely little ladies who are new to the channel, the Metallica fam, that's how I met James. Wasn't after him. Didn't want him. And for the ladies who are wanting to be groupies, this is why I say all the time, don't get really freaked out about if the plans are not going your way. Be open to what the universe holds for you, because sometimes the universe has different ideas and it's going to turn out to be one of the fucking funnest times of your life. And some long years friends. With many adventures that you're going to jump on their plane, put bows in their hair, make up the dirty alphabet, so on and so on. So yeah, that's why I say don't always be so hell-bent on, I've got to get that cigarette, it's going to go exactly how it's going to go in my head. You're not going to have any fun that way. This way, you have fun. Fuck Jake. Never did. All right, and thank you guys for getting to the end of the episode, for listening to me read about my brouhaha lifestyle, and just for being really cool people and open, and other groupies coming here, the 80s ladies. I am so excited that we get to converge here, and that I've met so many other cool groupies from the 70s, the 80s, all of us. And you guys, I have a bunch of episodes with Diana, with Melody, Kristen and I, and Danny. But Danny's hidden in the Metallica one about the car wreck. All of us that were there. Marie is in a bunch of the episodes. Of course, Desiree, you know, who was the daughter of Bucky Meadows, who was Willie Nelson's guitar player for a lot of years. So I just been so lucky to meet such amazing people and have Desiree like a sister to me now. And I just really love it. And I think it's time us 80s ladies really take our voices, take our place in the rock and roll history world. Because groupies did not stop in the 70s, and they weren't named Penny Lane in the 80s. But, all right, you guys, again, thank you so much for getting to the end of this episode, for just hanging out with me. If you're just kind of on the channel, really, truly, hit that subscribe, hit the share. Let's grow this place together, you guys, because you guys have really, really helped me grow to, we're at over 2,200 now, just barely. I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much for getting married. Let's keep going. So anybody who's just kind of lingering, not sure, hit that subscribe, hit the bell, become a member, and we'll see. Oh, hit the bells, and we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.